am the Irish guy, and right, today I'm going to take a look at every Premier League club and find each team's downgrade of the summer. One player who has replaced another in your squad, taking his place in the team or on the bench, a move that has actually made one area of your team weaker. Today, this is the video where I expose your weaknesses. My weakness is dog food ice cream. Right, let's go. Arsenal, Aaron Ramsdale to Neto. Look, I'm not saying that new Arsenal signing Neto is some fat sponge of a goalkeeper. I'm not saying that loaning him in from Bournemouth is the equivalent of borrowing a bag of toenails from your cousin. I actually think this is one of the better backup goalies that the top 4 club in England has made recently, because Neto is a professional second choice goalie, doing just that at top clubs like Juventus and Barcelona before, he was a panic buy for the Cherries 2 years ago after their main goalie Mark Travers let in 9. That poor kid is probably now a traumatized elf who spends every day hyperventilating into a shoe. So look, I do think that Neto is a solid signing, but face the facts, you've still weakened that position in your team, because yes, £18 million is a nice chunk of cash pocketed for Aaron Ramsdale after you sold him to Southampton, but he is not a second choice goalkeeper. He's a first team goalie who was unlucky to be on the bench. He's a better goalie than Neto. I think that's obvious by the fact that the Cherries were actively sniffing around bringing him back this summer. But Ramsdale is nearly 10 years younger than Neto. And yes, while he does have a bunch of depressing relegations crammed into his CV, he is still a top quality goalkeeper. Again, no, I'm not saying that Neto is the wrist strength of Meatloaf. He is fine, but he's not Ramsdale. Aston Villa, Moussa Diaby to Jadon Philogene. What would freak me out if I was an Aston Villa fan is that, as a newly qualified club for the Champions League, they haven't really strengthened the first team at all. Well, lads, I think it's mad how Villa have not actually replaced Moussa Diaby. Last summer's huge marquee summer signing from Bayer Leverkusen, a red-hot lightning quick France international winger bought for £51 million and sold this summer to Al Ittihad for £50 million. And who's his replacement on the wing? There isn't one. So far this season, John McGinn has been asked to play out wide. The only other winger this club actually bought, and who wasn't immediately loaned back out, is Jadon Philogene, a 22-year-old English winger re-signed from Hull for £13 million. Look, he's a cheap talent, sure, and probably had a certain Alfie drooling into his Egyptian shrimp pasta at the MKM Stadium, but he is nowhere near the level of France international Diaby. Bournemouth, Lloyd Kelly to Dean Hudson. Look, this feels slightly mean because, again, Dean Hudson is an exciting teenage centre-back bought from actual Juventus. Lads, Bournemouth are at the big boy table now, convincing youngsters to leave prestigious European monsters. So for me to sit here and tell you that the Cherries have actually downgraded from Lloyd Kelly, someone who is about as famous outside of England as a lump of might-year wax. Ozzy, anyone reckon this 25-year-old offender is getting bothered for selfies on the beach of Magaluf? But right now, for this season, then Hudson is still a raw young defender, and he hasn't started the last 2 Premier League matches. At the minute, he's probably not ready. While Kelly was an outstanding performer for the Cherries, he was the actual club captain, and so to see him walk out the door to Newcastle on a free, reuniting with Bournemouth legend Eddie Howe, the Cherries fans will probably feel like they've just been forced to watch their wife pack her suitcase and elope with their dad. Brentford, Ivan Toney to Igor Thiago. This was always going to happen. I'm not blaming Brentford for downgrading an Ivan Toney, because they were never ever going to replace him with a better striker when he left. The Bees naively expecting to get an upgrade. It's a bit like some stupid meatball thinking you could adequately recast the Joker after The Dark Knight. Well, 10 years later they did, but the world also had to endure some hipster, awful tattooed skeleton in between. Igor Thiago is another Wesley. Remember that Brazilian centre forward who Aston Villa paid big money to Club Bruges for, and who then melted like Freddos in an oven? Well, Thiago is another Samba striker bought from Bruges for £30 million. Somebody who actually managed to avoid being coached by Scott Parker, which is good, because if he had, then Thomas Frank would probably be instructing him to repeatedly bang his head off the sink to forget everything that Parker tried to tell him. But again, no, I don't care that he scored 29 goals in Belgium last season, or 20 goals in Bulgaria the year before. He's absolutely not another Tony. Brighton, Pascal Gross to Matt Wiefer. Look, Brighton have had a hipster makeover this summer, with Fabian Herzler going utterly mad with the spending spree, but I reckon there are a couple of downgrades in the squad. For example, I think the Seagulls would have been better off keeping German forward Dennis Undav around, instead of coughing up £40 million to Leeds for the misfiring Jorginho Rutter. But no, the obvious one, Brighton has splashed out €30 million on Feyenoord's 24-year-old defensive midfielder Matt Wiefer. I mean, is he an upgrade on the 33-year-old Pascal Gross, who just left for Borussia Dortmund in a £6 million deal? No! And it actually feels like Hustler has tried to replace Gross with 2 players, both FIFA and also Turkey's Ferdi Kadıoğlu, signed from Fenerbahce, because just like Gross, he can play central midfield, defensive midfield, left back, and even on the wing. Kadıoğlu is that. So it's nutty. Gross is so difficult to replace that Hustler is actually signed 2. This is like a man being dumped by his beloved wife, and so he tries to replace that hole in his life by begging 2 fat dinner ladies to live in his house. Chelsea, Conor Gallagher to Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. Well done, Enzo Maresca. You've absolutely smacked yourself in the face with this horribly ugly decision. Imagine choosing to sell Conor Gallagher to Atletico Madrid for £35 million. A homegrown, reliable midfield star who just squeezed 95 games into the last 2 seasons at Chelsea. I'm sorry, but to play nearly 100 times in just 2 seasons, those are freakish Frank Lampard-esque stats, and you've chosen to replace him by spending that £35 million on Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, whose birthday is tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday, Kiernan! Don't forget to make a wish when you blow the candles on your cake.
Although, let's be honest, his dream has already come true. This guy was just given a 6-year contract when he turns 26 years old tomorrow. Sorry, he is 1/3 of the way to 78 years of age, and he is a total late bloomer. How is a 26-year-old been at Leicester City since 2006, and yet has only 2 Premier League campaigns under his belt? How? If he really is Chelsea standard, then I would have expected him to be like Ben Chilwell, to have had some fingerprints on that incredible title-winning season, repeatedly buzzing around the bench as a teen. But no, this lump of maggot cheese was 21 years old and playing for Blackpool on loan. He was on loan at Luton Town, aged 22. He was a downgrade on James Maddison at Leicester, and he's now a downgrade on Conor Gallagher. Sorry lads, I know it's his birthday tomorrow, and I do feel like that creepy clown for hire who's turned up to his party to just insult his mum and pee in a balloon, but still, this is such a painful downgrade. Lads, Lee Carsley is picking an experimental England side this weekend. Yeah, the uncapped Dewsbury-Hall is nowhere near the squad, and I'm gonna give him some friendly advice. Go and play for Malaysia. Declare for Malaysia this month, and you could become their GOAT, because you ain't never getting a sniff with England. Oh, and by the way, I haven't gone temporarily insane. No, this bloke is a Malaysian granny. He's illegible. Crystal Palace, Michael Olise to Daichi Kamada. Again, Crystal Palace shouldn't feel too guilty because they were obviously going to downgrade once their star boy Michael Olise quit for Bayern Munich in a £50 million deal. Look, his direct replacement seems to be Japanese winger Daichi Kamada, signed on a free from Lazio, who has slotted into that number 10 spot beside Ebereki Eze. Look, he's a decent player, absolutely, but Olise is a generational talent. Everton, Amadou Onana to Tim Ergbenum. Look, I actually quite like Tim Ergbenum. The 21-year-old £9 million signing from Aston Villa. He actually seems like a nimble box-to-box midfielder with a decent engine and good technique, but come on. Amadou Onana went the other way for £50 million. Ergbenum is decent, and he excelled on loan at QPR last season, but he's also built like a twig. As we speak, Sean Dyche is probably force-feeding him cheeseburgers down his throat. Onana is a powerful midfield monster for Belgium, and what's crazy is that he makes Ergbenum look every inch a child. What's crazy is that Onana is not even 2 years older than Tim, and yet he plays like he's got 10 more years experience. Fulham, João Palhinha to Sander Berg. Nobody was ever expecting Fulham to fluke an improvement to João Palhinha. Come on, this is a 29-year-old Portugal international defensive midfielder. Somebody who is so far above the level of mid-table Fulham. Yeah, he quit in a £50 million deal to Bayern Munich, and in his place, in comes a relegation-addicted munchkin in Sander Berg, bought from Burnley in a £20 million deal. Look, at the minute, Serbia international Sasa Lukic is currently occupying the base midfield as Marco Silva's number 6, but I reckon that will eventually go to Berg once he settles in, and he is a very different player to Palhinha. He's all about passing, keeping possession, and losing football games. Look, 4 years ago, before he had his confidence melted into mud at Sheffield United and Burnley, then yeah, this was a Norwegian wonder kid, somebody linked with Arsenal and Liverpool. This guy would have had more hype in 2020 than Sporting Lisbon's Palhinha. Another late bloomer who was 24 and on loan at Braga, but now he's 2024 and Palhinha is a European superstar, a more important player for Portugal than Ronaldo, while Berg, yeah, he probably now has the confidence of a 20-stone lunch lady, nervously preparing for a speed dating night. Ipswich Town, Vaclav Hadley to Ariana Muric. This might sound absolutely wacky, because I know everybody seems to weirdly rate Kosovo international goalkeeper Ariana Muric, but why? I don't care if he was a decent shot stopper in the championship with Burnley. How many mistakes does he need to make on match of the day before everyone realizes he is a useless turnip lineup in the Premier League. This man has put together such a horror showreel of awful errors in Premier League football that I actually genuinely believe that Ipswich should have probably stuck with their 33-year-old Czech goalie Vlaka Vrakli, who was their #1 last season, instead of just giving him to Burnley in a swap. Leicester City, Kelechi Iheanacho to Odsonne Édouard. Look, in terms of downgrades, I will admit this one is very, very close, because Odsonne Édouard and Kelechi Iheanacho are incredibly similar, both seen as top young strikers at European powerhouses like PSG and Man City. Yeah, Édouard went on to become a goal machine in Scotland, banging in nearly 90 goals for Celtic, but I reckon if Iheanacho had made that move instead of going to Leicester, he'd have done exactly the same. Both Édouard and Iheanacho are incredibly frustrating centre forwards. I mean, Iheanacho scored 19 goals in a single season for Leicester, but last season it was 5 in the Championship, whilst Édouard has just been a 5 to 7 goal a season striker at Palace. Iheanacho has rounded out his contract to join Sevilla on a free, while Steve Cooper has loaned in Édouard from Palace. There really is not much between them, but I think marginally Iheanacho is the slightly better player and has an ever so slightly higher ceiling. So this is a slight downgrade. Liverpool, Stefan Bajcetic to Tyler Morton. There's no real downgrades in Liverpool's first team this season, but if you want to be harsh, then yeah, highly rated Spanish midfielder Stefan Bajcetic. He just came back from a horrible injury. He was on course to be, what, 4th choice defensive midfielder at Anfield this season, but despite late random interest from Barcelona, a club who keep forgetting at least 4 times a week that they're broke, but no, the talented team has gone on loan to RB Salzburg instead, which has opened the door for 21-year-old homegrown midfielder Tyler Morton to take his place buried deep within the squad, just hanging around for cup games after Christmas. Look, it has been a while since Morton was involved in the Liverpool squad. 3 years ago, he was actually starting Premier League games against Spurs and a Champions League trip to AC Milan, before being banished on loan to Blackburn and Hull. Look, he's probably the modern day Jay Spearing, and incredibly lucky that Bajcetic left on loan, otherwise he'd probably be soggy wet toast. Man City, Julian Alvarez to James McAtee. Look, this might sound me, because James McAtee is obviously not a like-for-like replacement for Julian Alvarez. I mean, I think today we see this former Sheffield United loanee chucked up front for Man City is the day I licked chicken pox off a policeman's cheek. But lads, Alvarez did also play as an attacking midfielder for City a lot, and since joining Atletico Madrid for £81 million, City have not replaced him. But McAtee, despite a demoralising relegation on loan to Sheffield United last season, he did just play 80 minutes in the Community Shield, almost as a number 10. This is so unfair, because there is a huge Alvarez-shaped hole still left in the squad after his £81 million sale, and McAtee is clearly a talented 21-year-old who has been educated and molded in the Man City academy. But if you want to be harsh, then yeah, he's obviously nowhere near as good as the world champion who completed football by the age of 22. Man United, Raphael Varane, and Matthijs the list. Look, there are upgrades all over the pitch for Manchester United this season, but if I'm being harsh, then I'm going to plumb for Matthijs de Ligt as being the weak one. Look, I know it seems nonsense to say that £50 million de Ligt is a downgrade on some French lump of shepherd's pie who's just joined a newly promoted Italian team. And surprise, surprise, he hasn't been able to make his Como debut yet because he's injured. But I have always thought that Raphael Varane was a fabulous centre-back. Come on, 4 Champions Leagues and a World Cup? De Ligt could never. Someone who I've been so unimpressed with since leaving Ajax, having somehow managed to make both Juventus and Bayern Munich worse. I get why Varane was shuffled out the door. He has a body made of wood. I get it. But if both players are fit, then I am sorry. I am picking a 31-year-old Varane ahead of a 25-year-old De Ligt. Varane proved last season he still has it when he's on the pitch. And I think De Ligt, someone who has poisoned 2 all-conquering teams in Italy and Germany, I believe he is the inferior centre-back. Newcastle, Jamal Lewis to Alex Murphy. I am absolutely reaching with this one, because let's be fair, Newcastle have not downgraded this summer. Sure, selling Yankuba Minte to Brighton will age poorly, but the bloke never represented Newcastle in his life. So what, am I supposed to pretend that Eddie Howe has replaced him with Jacob Murphy on the wing? Absolutely not. Murphy's been playing for Newcastle for 7 years. The guy has nearly 200 games for the Magpies under his belt. Minte doesn't have a single Geordie minute to his name. So how disrespectful and stupid would that be? So I'm gonna pick on the other Murphy then, the actually Irish Murphy. And I hate to do it, but Alex Murphy is a 20-year-old Republic of Ireland under 21 international who could play either as a centre-back or, crucially, left back. I'm assigned from Galway United 2 years ago. Look, I want this kid to do well, but if I'm being ruthless, then I have to say that right now that Jamal Lewis is a better left back. Of course he is. He's 26. He played 100 games for Norwich City. Last season played 38 games on loan at Watford and is now just signed for Sao Paulo in Brazil. Lads, if one of the biggest football clubs in the world thinks he's good enough for them, you know, the third best supported football team in Brazil with over 22 million fans, lads, 10% of the Brazil population supports them. And if they think he's good enough for them, a player who Jurgen Klopp once tried to buy for Liverpool, then yeah, I hate to say it, but as of right now, he is a better player than Murphy. Nottingham Forest, Moussa Niakate to Morato. Okay, Nottingham Forest haven't really downgraded much either, but if I had to reach for one, then probably selling 28-year-old Senegal international centre-back Moussa Niakate to Lyon for £20 million. And he replaced him with a 23-year-old Brazilian defender, Morato. A complete risk bought from Benfica for £12 million? Yeah, looks a bit like a downgrade. Southampton, Carlos Alcaraz to Matthijs Fernandes. Does anyone find it really sad that Carlos Alcaraz's European career is over? Nah, relax, Wimbledon fans. I'm not telling you that this tennis number one has been abducted by aliens on a fishing trip to Malta. No, it's not him. It's Southampton's star attacking midfielder Alcaraz. You know, the Argentina under-23 international, who they signed from Racing Club in January 2023. He then proved himself to be an absolute breath of fresh air, an absolute spark, scoring 4 goals during their relegation run-in, earning himself a brief loan to Juventus. And yet now, despite being filthily skillful and talented, he's just been sold to Flamengo for £15 million. Weirdly, becoming the biggest transfer in that club's history. Yes, a Brazil giant who've had superstars like Zico, Romario, and Ronaldinho on their books, and yet their biggest, most expensive deal is just buying crumbs off Southampton's bench. Anyway, he's gone at the age of just 21 and being replaced by 20-year-old Portuguese midfielder Matthijs Fernandes. Bought from Sporting Lisbon for almost the same fee as they sold Alcaraz for. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this one isn't getting picked up by Juve. Tottenham, Giovanni Lo Celso to Lucas Bergvall. Okay, I feel a bit silly saying that Lucas Bergvall is a downgrade on Giovanni Lo Celso, because that could absolutely make me look like a wet pumpkin sandwich soon. But the fact is that Lo Celso is 10 years older than this new signing Bergvall. And Lo Celso has nearly 60 Argentina caps and is an absolutely quality attacking midfielder who did make 24 Spurs appearances last season, even scoring in back-to-back games against Aston Villa and Man City. Bergvall will probably wind up having a better Spurs career than Lo Celso. But as for right now, this season, surely the skinny teenage Swedish scrap is an immediate downgrade on a 2-time Copa America champion, someone who literally just provided the winning assist in the Copa America final only 2 months ago. What's Bergvall done this summer, other than play spin the bottle with his mum? West Ham, James Ward-Prowse to Carlos Soler. West Ham have had a pretty fantastic makeover this summer, but I just can't help but feel that they've made a very late window mistake, dumping an absolute set-piece specialist in James Ward-Prowse, someone who would be tailor-made for Nicholas Füllkrug's game, just loaning him out to Nottingham Forest in favour of signing yet another technical midfielder, Carlos Soler, a 27-year-old Spanish international borrowed from PSG. I think this whole deal was unnecessary. Wolves, Pedro Neto to Carlos Forbes. Poor Carlos Forbes. I feel really bad for the kid. A 20-year-old Portuguese talent, someone who spent 8 years in the Man City Academy before doing the brave Jadon Sancho move of quitting that he had for first team football in another league, and he did scramble over 30 games for a pretty rubbish Ajax team last season, and he's now just been loaned to Wolves for a year, with Forbes being told to directly fill the £54 million hole left by Pedro Neto going to Chelsea. Yeah, one is a full Portugal international. The other one has 3 caps for Portugal under 21s. This hardly seems fair. Anyway, that's even what do you think? Let me know what do you think? What is the biggest downgrade at your club? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, as always. I'll talk to you in a while.